pleasure, therefore, to present to you today the founder of the League, Miss Sylvia Stankhurst, singing for us a song which offers sage advice to the worried citizen. Sylvia's mother, the celebrated Emmeline Stankhurst, will accompany on the pianoforte.
All right, folks, it's time for Shiny Side Out with David Dunger and Mecky. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Take it away, guys.
Welcome to Shiny Side Out with Dave.
And Mecky.
Live from the City Studios in Australia. If you didn't know it, Revolution Radio has a chat room. We're in there right now. Actually, we are. And you can be there too. Simply go to freedomslips.com and you can chat to us and listen from there too. Check out our website, shinysideout.net, for more info, and also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and also we've got a blog as well, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff. If you live in Kentucky, tune in to WZZR 101.3 FM. If you're anywhere else in the entire world, you can connect to us via one of these apps: Revolution Radio, TalkStream Live, TuneIn.com, Radio TuneIn, Spreaker.com, iHeart, Live 365, and our very own app, Shiny Side Out. I wrote it. It's awesome. At home, you can listen on a Grace tabletop digital radio, or if you're driving around, either way via one of those apps, or if you're in a GM motor vehicle, you can be fortunate enough to have a receiver-enabled radio. All are revolutions in radio. Mecky, just on the side, I never thought we could listen to radio on an app on a phone.
Yeah, right.
You know, even by the internet.
How complicated is that?
I know.
No, this is. No, look, again, we've said it before, say it again. Dave and I have seen technologies come and go. Most of you guys probably don't know what a cassette player is, or for the matter, have never actually spun a vinyl disc, a record, or I had 8-track tapes, for that matter. So yeah, no, this is a brand new thing. It is in fact free if you listen to it on your phone, pretty much, just like your voice calls on Skype are free if you're between Skype instances. It's amazing technology, I have to say.
Of course, it uses data, and if your plan doesn't include data, then it's going to cost you. So be careful. All I suggest is use Wi-Fi. It's a disclaimer. So use Wi-Fi when you can. That's what we do. We're in IT. The number to call in if you're in the USA is 347-688-2902. I don't even have to look at that anymore. It's only taken 139 shows, Mecky.
Yeah, I know.
139.
930 and 100. Yep. 930 and 100, right? That's it's a big number.
Did you hear?
Didn't think. Go on.
I didn't think we'd be there.
No. I mean, like I said, people have asked me. There's this one friend whom I saw fairly recently. Said to me, "So, are you still doing that? Haven't you run out of stuff to say yet?" I said, "No, not yet. Not yet. Getting there."
Yeah, we're getting towards the beginning of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So, were you listening to John Strom on Solaris' show? She had a great show again, yeah?
Of course you did. What a
she
shock.
Always
No,
does.
it was actually very interesting. Very interesting. Yes. She gets good guests, I want those guests too, Dave. That's what I want.
I know. Well, we have the names of each one of them. Anyway, Solaris is a good friend. She's a good friend of the show. She's been on our show as well, and I've been on her show. And
she's great.
yeah, she really is great. You know, the stuff that she's been through. You know, my goodness. Do you know, Mackie? Before I just got home, just flew in the door right now, and jumped online and got us all up and running, ready for our show, for show 139. Do you know what? I've been at the Tugra Lakes UFO Society monthly meeting, and they had a tremendous fellow on there, which I'm no doubt will get on the show because he's just truly amazing, and he was all to do with past lives. So you know that's not something we've touched on reincarnation ourselves, but we didn't have an expert in the field, and he'd be a great get for that. So we look forward to some correspondence on that one. Hey, Mackie, what was the temperature where you were today?
I think we're hitting around 30 today.
Yeah, well, I think the maxed out about 33 up here.
Wow!
But we're coastal, yeah, and now the coastal mist has come in. It's a really weird afternoon. It's still
actually
really
it got a bit misty, right? Yeah.
Yeah, well, there's really strange mist, like on The Simpsons, that turns everyone inside out. It's the same kind of mist-looking thing. It's almost blocked out the sun.
Oh, you love The Simpsons. Yeah, I love them too.
You know what? I do actually. I saw a brand new episode the other day, and I thought it was just as good as strong as it's ever been. So you know,
there's a conspiracy on the net which I have to follow up. I don't know the details, but roughly said, apparently one of the early episodes, or not early. No, Ebola. One of the episodes apparently predicted the Ebola outbreak back in the late 90s. So there you go.
It's funny, but it first appeared in 1997, the virus, and so it was one of those "I'll say you've got Ebola" kind of books. It was very funny. It was an interesting reference, but the 9/11 one was the same, and there's a lot of talk. I'm not dismissing it. There's a lot of talk out there about 9/11, the $9 it cost for the ticket to go to New York, and it showed the 11 was the Twin Towers. So, yeah, there's a lot out there. But what's new this week? I mean, there's been a lot of stuff. You know, Mackie, I've been blogging, tweeting. I've been doing the Facebook thing, and I've got the YouTube going on. Mackie, we hit 14,000 views this month on our YouTube channel.
That is incredible, actually.
We've got maybe about 140, 50, about 150 vids from our... No, not even that. 75 or something, because we lost 70 something. So think about the show numbers, right? And that's an extraordinary quantity of video views on our topics, yeah?
No, look, it is. And thank you very much, everybody who is coming to this on YouTube. You should also check out the new YouTube clone that Revolution Radio uses since the Troubles. And just while we're on the topic, thank you for the segue, sir. The reason we have had trouble, I don't know, but what has happened is we have lost shows that were formerly stored with Revolution Radio on YouTube. They are gone. Well, so what Dave and I are going to do is we're starting the missing or the lost show cycles, or the lost shows cycle, meaning we are going to record or re-record one of the lost shows each month. Today happens to be one of those shows. It's going to be show number 24, the problems with scientific dating, explaining what scientific dating is, the knowledge filter, things around that, and also maybe some archaeological discoveries that you might not have heard about. And specifically in the 19th century. So Dave and I are going to re-record all the lost shows where we can, of course, where it's a guest, and in some cases, in one case at the very least, the guest has now passed. But we're hoping to get certainly Jim Mars back. That's an archive that I'm keenly missing. Yes. I really enjoyed that particular interview, so hopefully we can get Jim back. It was a fluke we got him in the first place. We were meant to have his assistant on, but we actually got him, which was brilliant. I really admire his work, and so does Dave. So but be that as it may, we are going to re-record them, and today we are re-recording scientific dating for you guys, and we're going to explain a whole bunch around that as well.
Also, look, if you heard the first version when it came through back in, I think it was show 25 or 24. Well, when you heard that first time around, we've actually added to it now. So there's been, it's been a long time since that show and
Yeah.
we've added some more stuff to it. So don't turn off. You're going to learn something. And Mackie, one of the things that interested me when we went down the path of the dating, the problems with dating, was that it applies to the way you think about the results you hear from the hardcore conservationists, the conservatives, I should say, in a historical realm, because they don't want their stuff to change, and yet we hear them argue one way or another depending on which dating method they're choosing to adhere to support their theory.
Correct.
And so, one of the things that I did when I first learned that there was problems with particular methods, well, then why don't you look at all of them, all the methods, and apply them? So that's what will come from today's show. Mackie, there was something this week, wasn't there? There was something new. A new species, was it, or something we found?
Well, the species has been, or was discovered a year or so ago, right? Oh, sorry, I lied to you. It was in fact discovered 10 years ago. It's the...
hang on, that was yesterday. No.
It was just yesterday. No. This is essentially the tiny little hobbit, or so-called hobbit, that was found in Indonesia. Homo florensis, if you remember that, Homo florensis. So essentially, what I want to share with you guys is a few quotes that were given in an article as recently as a couple of days ago, as Dave has pointed out. And it's very important that we share this with you at this point, show cycle as well. So the tiny species was discovered about 10 years ago. You might remember this. It's a tiny little human being. It was nicknamed the Hobbit. And this is what Professor Richard Roberts of the University of Wollongong here in Australia had to say. The discovery of a completely different species of human put paid to the cozy status quo in one fell swoop. He goes on to say, it's a far cry from the old view of a linear progression from knuckle-dragging ape-like creatures to upright modern people. Professor Roberts says the discovery of a completely different species of human on the Indonesian island of Flores that lived until relatively recently put paid to this cozy status quo in one fell swoop. I'm repeating myself because it's very important. The notion that our species, Homo sapiens, was the only species of human on the planet was for the first time in thousands of years in doubt. Perhaps tales of yetis, giants, and leprechauns have a basis from our distant evolutionary past. Now, this is from BBC, guys. The discovery of the Hobbit has opened up the credible possibility of other undiscovered human species being out there. Perhaps buried meters underground, like the Hobbit, or tucked away in a museum drawer, unrecognized for what it truly is, another species, or another new species, but misidentified as an unusual modern human or an earlier species of human well known to science, he said to the BBC. Okay, so I want to quickly say this again because it's actually important for today's show. So we've got a scientist here, fairly renowned scientist in this particular area, saying that there may already be clues existing in museums, in the Smithsonian, wherever, that have been miscategorized, misidentified, or maybe deliberately hidden in drawers, who knows. And this is important because today's show will talk about finds, archaeological finds, geological finds from the 19th century, which for the most part have been dismissed by modern science, simply because they don't agree or correlate with the information roadmap and landscape that we have built for ourselves in the last 200 years. So these are finds that lie outside the accepted margins of error. Okay, now we have a scientist here admitting that with the discovery of this Homo florensis, for the first time in a long time, do we have now the opportunity to ask questions and maybe even recategorize some of our existing museum exhibits? That's why that is important.
Oh, I'm glad you put that to rest, Mickey. Do you know what? I've been particularly active, as I mentioned, going through the Twitter and the Facebook and the blogging and everything, and I've been going on to other forums and posting our videos as answers to some other people's questions, and we're seeing an explosion in this, and I want you, if you're listening to this video just because you've randomly surfaced something on YouTube, go to freedomslips.com and check out all of the other host vids. You go there, listen to the other shows. All the other shows are solid. They're really cool shows to listen to. Just want to say that. I've been so active, Mecky. I know everyone's a bowled out. Give me 30 seconds. 30 seconds.
No, absolutely.
Until it comes to a town near you, you can go to sleep on it for a while. The only thing that I sent a letter to a union, the nurses union of New South Wales, in the hope, Mecky knows this, but in the hope, this is to everyone, all listeners, in the hope that what they're going to do is, reply with concerns for their members. I worked for a union for 10 years. Very important, the relationship between the union and the members, and they always are on the lookout for their own members. So I thought that was an important place to start with the query that Ebola can float on air in a droplet. Yeah, it can be transmitted, inhaled, and that's So what are you going to do? How to react to it? Do you have any comments? Is what I asked. I hope that if there's any other medical professionals out there that are able to work with that theory, as there are researchers all around the planet working on the same theory, with the number of carers and medical professionals that have now come down with the virus itself. Those people who are trained and know what they're doing are still coming down with it. So that's why my urgency on this, because we're still looking at 18,000. Mecky today was 4,800 and something, probably 4,900, which is approximately half or 50% of the people in West Africa that have died from it. Remember, it started down at 46. It's rising. The amount of people who are becoming, that it's fatal for has reached about 50%. So, this thing is still there. It looks like 18,000 by mid-November, mid to late November. There'll be 18,000. So we're seeing a big spike. It's still spiking up, and despite there being some good news about, was it Nigeria being? Which one was it? I'm a bowled out. I think Nigeria. One of those countries has declared they're Ebola free.
Yeah, it was Nigeria. There seem to be no further infections.
Yeah, so that's good for them, but at the same time, what do they do that no one else did, and that was close their borders. So, if you want to shut it down, you have to shut down contact between people and let it run its course. Sadly, let it run its course, and then see.
Yeah,
but,
I know.
But
it sounds callous. It sounds callous, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah, but this is once again we're in the face of America saying everything's great, there's no panic, don't worry about it, and yet more and more people over there have become infected, and how they become infected because they were caring for someone.
Yeah.
So I think, if you want to close your eyes, put your head in the sand, go ahead. It's up to you. I can't tell you what to do, but all we can suggest and advise that you do, and this is the end of the Ebola thing tonight, is just be aware. Be aware and have a plan. Make yourself a plan. Whether you use it or not, that's going to be up to you. All right?
Yep.
I'm done. That's it. No more Ebola for today.
Nice. No, but look, it's Dave. It's important. I want to defend you here, because again, mainstream news will jump in and out, as they please. Do keep an eye out. Do still, remain vigilant. That's all I can say. Is try to avoid traveling to West Africa if you can. So it is still an important topic, of course.
You caught me mid-drink, Mecky. I was having a drink. I threw it to you so I could have a drink.
No worries.
I even edited myself out of the video and everything. There you go.
Nicely done. Without further ado, then, because there are a number of pages we're going to get through, ideally, let's jump into the show. And in fact, I can see here, yep. So timelines, dating methods, and objects of great antiquity. And there's a preamble to the show, same as last time. And I want to share this with you. We found this on a creationist site that doesn't take away from its validity. Okay, so I would like you to just to listen to this particular thought experiment, if you will, and I have told you it is actually from creation.com. Neither Dave nor I are creationists, but we cast our net wide to bring you the information that we can. Okay, it's a teaching aid when it comes to scientific dating, and it summarizes perfectly the problem with scientific dating. So I'm going to quote now the site. There's a teacher that is addressing his students, and he used a measuring cylinder to illustrate how scientific dating works. A measuring cylinder is simply a cylinder of glass, which has got little markers on the side, which indicates the level of volume it has filled up to. That's it. Pretty straightforward. So his picture showed a water tap dripping into the cylinder, and it was clearly marked so that his audience could see that it held exactly 300 milliliters of water when it was full. The diagram also showed that the water was dripping at a rate of 50 milliliters per hour. Right, so 300 mils and 50 mils per hour. So he asked, how long has the water been dripping into the cylinder? And immediately someone said 6 hours. That's interesting. How did you work that out? Well, he divided the amount of water in the cylinder by the rate. So 300 divided by 50 is 6. Excellent, the teacher said. See how easy it is to calculate the age of something scientifically? Every dating method that scientists use work exactly the same way. It involves measuring something that is changing with time. People began to relax once they understood that the science of dating is not so difficult. He then surprised them and said, well, the problem is that 6 hours is the wrong answer. The students looked puzzled and disbelieving, right? Now he says he set the experiment up, and he can tell you that the water has only been dripping for 1 hour. Can you tell me what happened? After the students had composed themselves, someone called out, well, maybe the tap was dripping faster in the past? Perhaps, he said. Maybe the cylinder was nearly full when the experiment started. Maybe. But, can you see what you're doing here? He asked the students. In order to calculate an age, you made assumptions about the past. You assumed the rate had always been 50 milliliters per hour, and that the cylinder was empty when it started. Based on those assumptions, you calculated the time of 6 hours. Everybody nodded. Now, you were perfectly happy with that answer, and no one challenged it. Then, when he told them the correct answer, they realized what they did, they quickly changed their assumptions about the past in order to agree with the age that he told them. So, fundamentally, scientific dating is not a way of measuring, but a way of thinking. And I'll come to the 3 basic assumptions underlying scientific dating in a moment, or further on in the show. Now, every scientist must first make assumptions about the past before he can calculate an age. If the result seems okay, then he will be happily accepted. But if it does not agree with the other information that he has already, or that it's at their disposal, then he or she will change the assumptions so that the answer does agree. Okay, there are actually cases of retroactive fitting of data. It's unfortunate, but it happens. So it doesn't matter if the calculated age is too old or too young. There are always many assumptions the scientists can make to get a consistent answer. Okay, so scientific dating, once again, is not a way of measuring, but a way of thinking. All right, so
Mickey,
everybody with me so far?
Mickey, yep. Poor Einstein. When I learned about him, I was baffled. He is a genius, but he even suffered exactly the same thing with the Einstein constant, where he found fault in his own equation, believed there should have been a zero answer, so he made a constant which made his answer work. And yet today we've found that the constant was actually the difference, and he was right to have excluded the constant because that was just a way of fixing his equation when that was really truly the answer. Extraordinary that someone as smart as him suffered the same thing.
And this is the key thing here, Dave. And thank you very much for raising this particular example. We have a whole bunch of theories out there, guys, and they're theories, right? And so you find corresponding data to prove your theory if you've got a vested interest, and you discard the data that doesn't fit into your set of observations, that you want to present as your theory. It's what I like to call the human error, because no matter what we do, we always have to account for that. But even if we had a scrupulously honest scientist that did everything right, even then we have some issues, because we still have to build our theories and hypotheses on assumptions, because we don't have all of the data. And sometimes the things don't fit, and people do invent constants or variables and put them into the equation just to make the equation work, rather than changing your mind and maybe approaching it differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, this is hopefully not going to be the boring part, but we need to share this with you. And I think I'll take the first bit, and then you can take the radiocarbon dating, sir. That's okay? Mm-hmm. Very good. Okay, so this is the accuracy of dating, and this is the accepted scientific paradigm, okay? The accuracy of the fossils. Now, this is the statement that scientists make. Fossils prove that humans did not exist alongside dinosaurs. Boom, that's the statement, right? Accepted scientific paradigm. Since 1859, paleontologists or fossil experts have searched the world for fossils. In the past 150 years, they have not found any fossils that Darwin would not have expected. Okay, new discoveries have filled the gaps, shown us in unimaginable detail the shape of the great tree of life, and Darwin and his contemporaries could never have imagined the improvements and resolution of stratigraphy that have come since 1859, nor guessed what fossils were to be found in the southern continents. Okay? All these labors have not led to a single unexpected finding, such as a human fossil from the time of the dinosaurs or a Jurassic dinosaur in the same rocks as Silurian trilobites. I want you to remember that. That's an official statement, okay, from the scientific community. Now, scientists now use phylogeny, mathematics, and other computations to date fossils. Okay, so they apply sophisticated mathematical techniques to assess the relative quality of particular fossil successions, as well as the entire fossil record. These demonstrate that, of course, we do not know everything, and clearly never will, but we know enough. Today, innovative techniques provide further information and confirmation understanding of the history of life. Biologists actually have at their disposal several independent ways of looking at the history of life, not only from the order of fossils in the rocks, but also through phylogenetic trees. Phylogenetic trees are the family trees of particular groups of plants or animals, showing how all the species relate to each other. You've seen them, it's like the tree branching with different species, like for example for us it's monkeys, then apes, then humans, and it's like we're living on the branches of the trees. Phylogenetic trees are drawn up mathematically using lists of morphological, which is the external form, or molecular, which is the gene sequence, characters. So it's either your morphological or molecular characters that determine where you belong on that tree. Modern phylogenetic trees have no input from stratigraphy, so they can be used in a broad way to make comparisons between tree shape and stratigraphy. The majority of test cases show good agreement, so the fossil record tells the same story as the molecules enclosed in living organisms. Dating in geology may be relative or absolute. Okay, relative or absolute, that's in geology. Relative dating is done by observing fossils, as described above, and recording which fossil is younger and which is older. The discovery of means for absolute dating in the early 1900s was a huge advance. Okay, the methods are all based on radioactive decay. So relative dating is actually dating that is based on where in the rock strata you find something. Okay, so obviously the further down you go, the assumption is that's the older rock, so therefore the fossil is older. That's relative dating. So if I find a human bone on top of a dinosaur bone, separated by 3 or 4 different stratas, then I can say with some certainty the human bone is younger than the dinosaur bone, which is deeper in the earth. Now that is relative dating. Okay. Now absolute dating refers to the decay of radioactive isotopes. Okay. Now it is calculated by, in fact, calculating the rate of decay of certain elements. Okay, certain naturally occurring elements are radioactive, and they decay or break down at predictable rates. Chemists measure the half-life of such elements. For example, the time it takes for half of the radioactive parent element to break down to the stable daughter element, meaning it decreases in radioactivity. Sometimes one isotope or naturally occurring form of an element decays into another, more stable form of the same element. By comparing the proportions of parent to daughter element in a rock sample and knowing the half-life, the age can be calculated. Okay? Older fossils cannot be dated by carbon-14 methods and require radiometric dating. Okay, the scientists use different chemicals for absolute dating, and the best known absolute dating technique is carbon-14. You might have heard about that, right? Or radiocarbon dating, which archaeologists prefer to use. However, the half-life of carbon-14 is only 5,730 years, So the method cannot be used for materials older than about 70,000 years. Already a problem in my mind. Radiometric dating involves the use of isotope series such as rubidium strontium, thorium lead, potassium argon, argon argon, or uranium lead, all of which have very long half-lives, ranging from 0.7 to 48.6 billion years. Subtle differences in the relative proportions of the two isotopes can give good dates for rocks of any age. Now, having said that, it might not tell you necessarily when that rock was worked. Okay? Not necessarily. Now, scientists can check the accuracy by using different isotopes, of course. The first radiometric dates generated in about 1920 showed that the Earth was hundreds of millions or billions of years old. Since then, geologists have made many thousands of radiometric age determinations, and they have refined the early estimates. A key point is that it is no longer necessary simply to accept one chemical determination of a rock's age. Age estimates can be cross-tested by using different isotope pairs. Results from different techniques, often measured in rival labs, continually confirm each other. There's only a 1% chance of error with current dating technology. Okay. Sir, radiocarbon dating.
Excellent. The radiocarbon method was developed by a team of scientists led by the late Professor Willard F. Libby of the University of Chicago after the end of World War II. Libby later received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1960 for the radiocarbon discovery. Today, there are over 130 radiocarbon dating laboratories around the world producing radiocarbon dates for the scientific community. The C14 or carbon-14 method has been and continues to be applied and used in many different fields, including hydrology, atmospheric science, oceanography, geology, paleoclimatology, archaeology, and biomedicine. Meki, you might, and the listeners might want to know how it works. All plants and animals on Earth are made principally of carbon. We're carbon life forms, we're carbon-based life forms. During the period of a plant's life, the plant is taking in carbon dioxide through photosynthesis, which is how the plant makes energy and grows. Animals eat plants, and some other animals eat other animals in the food chain. Carbon follows this pathway through the food chain on Earth, so all living things are using carbon, building their bodies until they die. A tiny part of the carbon on Earth is called carbon-14, or radiocarbon. It's called radiocarbon because it's radioactive. It just means the atomic structure isn't stable and it's giving off, it's decaying. In the 1940s, scientists succeed in finding out how long it takes for radiocarbon to disappear or decay from a sample of carbon from a dead plant or animal. This is Willard Libby. He and two other students first measure the half-life of radiocarbon. The half-life refers to the amount of time it takes for half of the radiocarbon in a sample of bone or shell or any other carbon in a sample to disappear. Libby found that it took 5,568 years for the half of the radiocarbon to decay. Okay, so Meki mentioned that before. It doesn't give you a great length of time, but after twice that time, which is about 11,000 years, another half of that remaining amount will have disappeared. After another 5,568 years, again another half will have disappeared. So you can see it actually halves every time within that period of time. That's the half-life year range. So if I had a half-life of 2 years, after 2 years, half of my radioactivity would have disappeared. You can work out that after about 50,000 years of time, all the radiocarbon will have gone. Therefore, radiocarbon dating is not able to date anything older than 60 or 70,000 years. So what kinds of things can you date using radiocarbon methods, or C14? Because carbon is very common on Earth, there are a lot of different types of material which can be dated by scientists. Below is a list. Here we go. So charcoal obviously made of carbon, wood, twigs and seeds, bone, marine and estuarine, or either river or oceanographic shells, leather and peat. We've got coprolites, which is preserved feces, and I think Meki and I found some on the top of that mountain when we were up there.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Lake muds, because they're sediments, soils, ice cores, pollen, hair. You can notice there's a theme here. Pretty much everything so far is something's grown.
Yeah, something organic, that's right.
Yeah, it's all organic. Metal casting ores. Okay, wall paintings and rock artworks, iron, meteorites, bird eggshell, corals. The list goes on. But I'll tell you that it's something that's, even including water, by the way. Fish remains, paper and parchment, resins and glues. Horns and antlers as well, I have to say. So, do you want me to go through this one? How did he test it?
Definitely.
Okay, so Libby, this is the professor, tested the new radiocarbon method on carbon samples from prehistoric Egypt, whose age was known. A sample of, well, that's debatable, a sample of acacia wood from the tomb of the pharaoh Zoser was dated, for example. Zoser lived during the 3rd dynasty in Egypt between 2700 to 2600 BC. Libby figured that since the half-life of carbon-14 was 55 and 100 years, they should obtain a radiocarbon of amount of about 50% of that which was found in living wood, because Zoser's death was about 5,000 years ago. Makes sense, that would be one half-life cycle. The results they obtained indicated this was the case. Many other radiocarbon dates were conducted on samples of wood of known age. Again, the results were good. In 1949, Libby and his team published their results. By the early 1950s, there were 8 new radiocarbon laboratories. By the end of the decade, there were more than 20. So you can see they discovered how pretty good this method seemed to be, but only within a certain range. You're testing one element.
Correct. However, now there are issues with that, though, right? And local eruptions of volcanoes and other events that give off large amounts of carbon dioxide can reduce local concentrations of carbon-14 and give inaccurate dates. The releases of carbon dioxide into the biosphere as a consequence of industrialization, have also depressed the proportion of carbon-14 by a few percent. Conversely, the amount of carbon-14 was increased by above-ground nuclear bomb tests that were conducted in the early 1960s. Also, an increase in the solar wind or the Earth's magnetic field above the current value would depress the amount of carbon-14 created in the atmosphere. Now, these effects are corrected for by the calibration of the radiocarbon dating scale. Having said that, we just don't know how much it would have changed, or how many different changes, or how strong the solar winds were, or what kind of radiation would have hit our atmosphere, or how much carbon dioxide was released in the atmosphere. We don't know really any of that. So it calls into question, to some extent at least, the dating method here, right?
Completely.
Now, radiometric dating, radioactive decay, and so forth. Essentially, examples, or an example of a radioactive decay chain from lead 212 to lead 208. I'm going to share with you now. So each parent nuclide spontaneously decays into a daughter nuclide, the decay product, via an alpha decay or a beta decay. The final decay product, lead 208, is stable and can no longer undergo spontaneous radioactive decay. Okay. Now, all matter is made up of, all ordinary matter is made up of combinations of chemical elements, each with its own atomic number, indicating the number of protons in the atomic nucleus. Additionally, elements may exist in different isotopes, with each isotope of an element differing in the number of neutrons in the nucleus. A particular isotope of a particular element is called a nuclide. Some nuclides are inherently unstable. That is, at some point in time, an atom of such a nuclide will spontaneously transform into a different nuclide. this transformation may be accomplished in a number of different ways, including radioactive decay, either by emission of particles, and these are usually electrons, which is beta decay, positrons, or alpha particles, or by spontaneous fission and electron capture, so it actually increasing the electron count rather than decreasing it. Okay, now, radioisotope dating is commonly used to date igneous rock. These are rocks which form when hot, molten material cools and solidifies. Types of igneous rocks include granite and basalt, which is lava. Sedimentary rocks, which contain most of the world's fossils, are not commonly used in radioisotope dating. These types of rocks are comprised of particles from many pre-existing rocks which were transported mostly by water and redeposited somewhere else. Types of sedimentary rocks include sandstone, shale, and limestone. Okay, so a lot of the sedimentary rock did not form where it is found. Okay, that's important to understand here. So it is not used in radioisotope dating. If it's igneous rock like lava or basalt or whatever, or granite, then you can be pretty sure that you're quite accurate there. Now, maybe share with you the uranium to lead decay sequence, meaning these are the elements it goes through to finally reach lead-206, which is stable. So it starts with uranium, which has a count of 238, thorium 234, protactinium 234, uranium 234, thorium 230, radium 226, radon 222, polonium 218, lead 214, bismuth 214, polonium 214, lead 210, bismuth 210, polonium 210, and finally lead 206, a stable element that will not decay any further. In fact, that is why lead is such a great shielding against radiation.
Because
okay, has no effect on it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, it's totally stable. Now, the radioisotope clock, dating clock rather, starts when a rock cools. During the molten state, it is assumed that the intense heat will force any gaseous daughter elements like argon to escape. Once the rock cools, it is assumed that no more atoms can escape, and any daughter element found in a rock will be the result of radioactive decay. Right, so I want to give you some half-lives here. Polonium 218 has a half-life of 3 minutes. Thorium 234, 24 days. Carbon 14, as discussed earlier, about 5,730 years. Potassium 40, 1.25 billion years. Uranium 238, 4.47 billion years. And rubidium 87, 48.8 billion years. You don't want to live in an area that has been polluted with uranium or rubidium, I can tell you that. Okay.
No, that's true. And remember that they decay to the daughter, so it starts at the parent and decays to the daughter element. And that's the hint here. Is we know that lead can be turned to gold in a reactor. It's only
it's
one
been done
element.
recently. Yep.
It's one element away, and it accepts electrons and becomes gold. In a very similar thing happens that they turn from one element to another in some cases, from carbon to nitrogen.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
absolutely.
So just knowing that when they do a study of something containing a particular percentage of each, then they know exactly where it is. This is what that dating method's all about.
Yeah. There are also different types of radiometric dating, and we've just got enough time before the break to share some of those with you, and then we'll get into some of the meatier things afterwards. So essentially, there's uranium lead dating method, right? Obviously, that's quite clear. There's also the samarium neodymium dating method. Okay, this involves the alpha decay of the samarium molecules. Potassium argon dating method. Okay, and this is involving the electron capture or positron decay of potassium 40 to argon 40. Rubidium strontium dating method, that's based on the beta decay decay of rubidium 87 to strontium 87 with a half-life of 50 billion years. Okay. Uranium thorium dating methods, which is a relatively short range dating technique, and it's based on the decay of uranium 234 into thorium 230. with a substance half-life of about 80,000 years. And then there's also the fission track dating methods, and not apatite crystals are widely used in fission rock dating, and this involves inspection of a polished slice of a material to determine the density of track markings left in it by the spontaneous fission of uranium-238 impurities. The uranium content of the sample has to be known, okay, but that can be determined by placing a plastic film over the polished slice of the material and bombarding it with slow neutrons. This causes induced fission of uranium-235 as opposed to the spontaneous fission of uranium-238. The fission tracks produced by this process are recorded in the plastic film. The uranium content of the material can then be calculated from the number of tracks and the neutron flux. Okay, we also, I read it out to you because I found that quite interesting. There's also the chlorine-36 dating method, as well as the luminescence dating methods. Now, this is interesting. Natural sources of radiation in the environment knock loose electrons in, say, a piece of pottery, and those electrons accumulate in defects in the material's crystal lattice structure. Heating or illuminating the object will release the captured electrons, producing a luminescence. When the sample is heated at a certain temperature, it will glow from the emission of electrons released from the defects. And this glow can be used to estimate the age of the sample of a threshold of approximately 15% of its true age.
Wow.
Okay,
that's
with
pretty
an
cool.
Yep. The data for rock is reset, however, when volcanic activity remelts it.
Mm-hmm.
The data for a piece of pottery is reset by the heat of the kiln.
Mm-hmm.
Typically, temperatures greater than 400 degrees Celsius will reset the clock, and that is termed thermoluminescence. Now, why am I making a point of mentioning this specifically? Because, I tell you, things we find out in nature, we don't know what happened to it. It's dug up. Maybe there was a cataclysm. Maybe it was I don't know. Maybe it was a solar flare. Maybe there was a meteorite impact which raised the temperature to several thousand degrees. So a piece of pottery that we find and date may very well come out to be, I don't know, like let's say 10,000 years old, or 5,000, or 6 or 4. It doesn't really matter. Whereas in reality, that may have been when that particular piece of pottery was reset. Right? You with me, guys?
I am.
So thank you, sir. An external influence might reset our piece of pottery or shard or whatever it might be, even piece of rock. Okay, so this is very, very important. Now, the final thing before the break, and let's make this very quick, this is the assumptions that underlie all dating, and these are critical. They must happen, okay? So, scientists use observational science to measure the amount of a daughter element within a rock sample and to determine the present observable decay rate of the parent element. Dating methods must also rely on another kind of science called historical science. Historical science cannot be observed. Determining the conditions present when a rock first formed can only be studied through historical science. Determining how the environment might have affected a rock also falls under historical science. Neither condition is directly observable. Since radioisotopes dating uses both types of science, we can't directly measure the age of something. We can use scientific techniques in the present combined with assumptions about historical events to estimate the age. Therefore, there are several assumptions that must be made in radioisotope dating. That's for all radioisotope dating. 3 critical assumptions can affect the results during radioisotope dating, and this is very, very important. Mm-hmm. Number 1, the initial conditions of the rock sample are accurately known. 2, the amount of parent or daughter elements in a sample has not been altered by processes other than radioactive decay. Mm-hmm. 3, the decay rate, or half-life, of the parent isotope has remained constant since the rock was formed.
I.e., it wasn't introduced to another radioactive source, which could affect the outcome. Mm-hmm.
Correct. So
who said that, Mackie?
Sorry, this is actually from Wikipedia itself. Okay, this is radiometric dating. These are the assumptions that have to be made by scientists. This is not conspiracy. This is a fact.
Agreed method.
Correct, sir. It's a great method. These are the underlying critical assumptions, and you can Google it for yourselves, guys. By the way, the 3 underlying critical assumptions when it comes to radioisotope dating. This goes for all the radioisotope dating. And now we've already seen, though, that certain things can reset the decay clock, as it were. Other things may affect it to some extent. I mean, again, cosmic radiation, solar flares, supervolcano eruptions. Exposure to I don't know, a nuclear war in the past. Hey, I'm putting it out there now, right? I'm saying it.
The Vedic text, don't they? That talks about it.
Yes, sir.
Also, you said meteorite impact. There could be some giant cataclysm. There's also the crushing of rock in a fault line under extreme pressure is also another thing that's been mentioned. Yep. So, I think.
Dave, you recently shared with us the impact site that has been found in the Pacific, in the Indian Ocean, right?
That's right. You know that the rock that you find wherever you are may not have always been there, and that's the other thing. It could have been taken from somewhere else. So, in the following hour, we're going to talk about forbidden archaeology, and how that these dating methods haven't always worked out. So how things are supposed to be dated and how the evidence is supposed to be presented. The people who are saying this are scientists. They want everything to be the same. The only way that you can do anything accurately is by doing it the same and getting the same outcome. And so that's why these methods have been put in place. But we're going to present you in the next hour things that aren't presented or taken out of context, or they say it's contaminated in a way that doesn't seem to make any sense. And this is what the show is all about. And this is what we do. Mackie and I have a chat window. We can chat to each other during the show. And, there's a lot of stuff that comes through this chat window when I'm talking or he's talking, and the other one will be chatting. Do you know what this show, when we first did it, Mackie, I was so charged with the forbidden archaeology side of it, and that's why we had to find out what was the right way of doing things.
Yes.
So one of the things that will come up in the next hour is microfossils. So during the break, after you've hit the donate button, what I'd like you to do, because I want you to donate to the station, to freedomslips.com, go and push the donate button, and if you're able to, just put yourself on a weekly or monthly rotation of $10 or something. Yeah. What I found when I started looking up the microfossils were these tiny little single cell creatures that get deposited in sediment layers, and they had their own evolution, and the evolution of those, we can go back to the dates of those, and if you find any one of those oldest ones in that layer only, then that's how old that layer is. So something extraordinary. Mecki, the other thing was how quickly layers can be built up. Yeah.
We saw that recently.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So
during a flooding event, in fact.
Yeah, you can get 2 or 3 foot of soil, or if there's an eruption, you can get a couple of meters of ash being deposited in a single event. And I'll tell you, there's not many fossils in there unless you have them perish. And remember, the only other way that fossils are ever left behind, Mecki, is through cataclysm.
Yes, sir.
That's the only other way. If Mecki and I just decided to lay down on our front yards right now and offer ourselves to science and become a fossil of some kind, our bones would disintegrate. They would.
Yes. They
wouldn't make it into a fossil process.
This is very true. It's very difficult for fossils to form, guys. A lot of conditions have to be just right. Okay, so people think, everything turns into a fossil. No. Most things disappear. Now, I'll give you an example here, right? And that is my favorite example. There's a coelacanth, which is a fish. Last known fossil record of that particular fish is 65 million years ago. 65 million years. So he was assumed to be a contemporary of the dinosaurs. Good assumption, makes sense. And it was also assumed to have been to have gone extinct together with the dinosaurs, whatever event that caused, right? So nothing for 65 million years, guys. So But that fish is still well and swimming alive in the Indian Ocean, off the coast of Madagascar, in fact. And the local fishermen catch it. Doesn't make good eating, but they're not really surprised to see it. Western scientists, of course, are all over and beside themselves. And the fish hasn't changed. It's the same exact fish. Okay, it's an ancient fish, bony fish, and it looks quite primitive, and not very attractive looking fish.
It has plating on the outside almost. It looks like.
Right. Yeah, but the point here is that in 65 million years, we have not found another fossil of it. 65 million years. Yeah. A lot of years. Okay, a lot of years. Yeah, let's science some here and let's make some assumptions. Now, why not? And this is really the problem with the fossil record. It takes cataclysmic events or special conditions for fossils to form. 98% of all fossils are marine fossils.
Good man.
98% of all. Right? 98% of all the fossils we've ever found anywhere are marine fossils. Why? Because the conditions on the ocean bed and the seafloor are more conducive to the formation of fossils than on land. Because in the seabed, they can sink into the sand. Then there's the water pressure, and then more sediment gets deposited on top of those dead fish or whatever it might be, and so they're compressed and go forward and become fossils. On land, if you die and you're not buried, which most animals are not, scavengers come, scatter you about, you're exposed to the elements, rain, wind, sun, and so forth. Microbes, they eat you up, and nothing much is left of you. In fact, that most things turn to dust, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. That's not just a nice little allegory. That's actually what happens to us. If you go into a cemetery, you'll find that there are very few corpses beyond 500-600 years that are well preserved, depending on the conditions, right? It depends on the conditions. In a humid climate, boom, you can see a corpse disintegrate within weeks. All right? If it's extremely dry, they might mummify and you might keep them for much longer. But anyway, so the point is that fossils form under very special and very specific conditions. It's not something that just happens to everything.
Otherwise, if we walk through the wilderness in the bush, we'd just be stepping over dry bones, fossilized bones everywhere, and that does not happen. It doesn't happen. Right. Even in a forest it's plentiful of life, there really isn't very much left behind. In North America, you'd have deer bones everywhere, but there isn't. It's just leaf litter. Yep. So we should be right up on the break. Don't forget, I just wanted to remind everyone, this is a great station. You need to hit the donate button, and if you've still got lots of money in your pocket, hit the donate button on the Shiny Side Out website. But I prefer you only do that after you've donated to Freedom Sips. The servers cost a lot of money to run. We're just doing this for free, and while this is show 139, we love what we do, and we love what we do because of you. And we need you to do this for us. So if you've learned anything today, and or anything from any one of our shows, in fact, if this is on YouTube, share it. Share this with your colleagues, and hit the donate button for us. All right. I'm really expecting the music anytime soon, Mickey. Any particular plug? There's none. Yeah. Have I said hit the donate button? Have I said how awesome the station is?
Please do. Hawk, Nighthawk, and the rest of the staff. And there's a staff, believe it or not.
There is.
People that dedicate this, their time to this because they're passionate about this. They want to bring you guys programming, that is not sponsor-driven, not by the fascist corporate machine. Okay, the Black Iron Prison. I'm not ranting and raving. It's a real thing. Look at show number 100. We've now hit over 8,500 views. Yoo-hoo! On that. So please go and check out show number 100, Our Hypothesis. The last 2 hours goes into some details. It's a 4-hour show with Solaris in the first 2 hours. Thank you, Solaris, for being our guest. But the second 2 hours will explain to you our hypothesis. Hypothesis, not theory, because we don't have any concrete evidence. We only have a whole bunch of suppositions and leaps of faith, and there's the music.
So hang tight. We'll talk to you, and we'll be back in a minute. Take care.
Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. And we'll be right back after this message.
This is Thomas, a.k.a. a Mad Painter. I'd like you to join me Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Open Canvas. Don't forget to bring an open mind.
Yes, folks, that's right. Bring an open mind to an open canvas. Again, that is Monday nights, 10 p.m. Eastern. UFOs to government corruption. This is Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here.
There is no denying the world is awakening. We see it in the global uprisings and demonstrations of the people around the planet and the new way of thinking and living that is arising naturally within each one of us and our communities. I have been a major player in this global shift and movement for over 20 years and have helped tens of thousands of people around the world change their lives and find their voice in order to help create the paradigm change we so desperately need. Join me here at Revolution Radio on the Just Bernard Show every Tuesday at noon Eastern Time for 2 hours of powerful interviews and discussion with some of the most influential visionaries of consciousness, alternative media, and suppressed knowledge. We promise to reveal the real matrix and empower your human experience.
Is your data safe? Do you have the necessary information to assist you in confidently living through just about any survival situation? Is survival and gardening, off-grid living, medical knowledge, or even natural or man-made EMPs on your list of personal concerns? Do you have your documents and your personal information in a safe place in your hands where you know where it is? Well, check out our preloaded EMP-proof thumb drive. Over 3 gigs of survival documents and how-tos, plus the USDA offline food preservation website, and much, much more, including a surprise bonus we just can't tell you about here. With plenty of room left over to store your most important documents. Imagine if a megavirus or computer failure took out your bank, or all the banks for that matter. Are your banking records safe in your hands? So when they get things fixed and repaired, you can say, hey, look, this is what I had. You have it. I want it back. Is your personal data safe? Family records, addresses, phone numbers? Well, squeeze on over to freedomslips.com. Yes, that's www.freedomslips.com. Click the banner on the homepage for the EMP-proof bullet drive to get the full scoop of everything that we offer. So, folks, keep your data safe for your peace of mind. Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. You don't need to expect us. We're already here. Thank you for tuning in to Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. If you plan to call in and speak with one of our hosts, please turn down your radio and separate yourself from any background noise and wait for the area code to be called on before you speak. And don't forget, Revolution Radio freedomslips.com is listener supported. So stop by the homepage, freedomslips.com, visit the site support area to help support the host you're listening to's airtime. Thank you. Revolution Radio freedomslips.com, where the truth never sleeps. The opinions expressed on this radio station, its programs, and its website by the hosts, guests, and call-in listeners or chatters are solely the opinions of the original source who expressed them. They do not necessarily represent the opinions of Revolution Radio and freedomslips.com, its staff, or affiliates. You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Hello and welcome back to Dave and Mackie's Shiny Side Out on Revolution Radio freedomslips.com. Sorry, I'm out of breath. I just ran up the stairs. This is show number 139, 930 and 100. And this is the start of the Lost Show cycle. And we are today re-recording show number 24, Dating Methods. And
yes,
as we
that's
said before
true.
the break.
It is so
That
true.
is the truth. if you listen to us before the break, please do donate. It is important that the station keeps going. There aren't any ads here for any products that you can buy commercially. It's all station's own ads for the most part, and so no one is dictating our agenda. And Nighthawk pretty much lets us talk about whatever we please. So. I think that's brilliant, to be honest with you.
It is. But if you're interested in having some product placement, or want to talk to us about some kind of sponsorship of some kind, well, we're open to suggestion. Trust me on that one. Okay, Meki. So what are we talking about today?
Okay, great. So today we've been talking about the dating methods, scientific. The first hour we tried to explain to you what radiocarbon or radioisotope dating is actually about, how it's used, what you can use it on, and the shortcomings, the assumptions underlying it, and just give you a general background. So this is all the accepted scientific stuff we've shared with you, and it's also important to understand what it can not do. So it's not the end all be all of all human endeavors. Now, what we're going to share with you here now, though, is something that is very important from our point of view. This is the work that was done by specifically Michael Creamer and Dr. Richard Thompson. They've written a number of books. There's Forbidden Archaeology is one, and Devolution is another. And I just want to give you a quick intro here. So they've compiled a large number of cases, and it's actually quite a dry read. It's a very scientific book, or scientifically written, I should say. So it's very dry, but it's very, very worthwhile reading, around cases of archaeology that were sort of, I guess, forgotten or not really didn't really receive the attention they should have at the time, is simply because they didn't really fit within the accepted paradigm, and certainly today they're no longer mentioned because they definitely don't fit. Okay, and it's interesting that that's why we shared the Hobbit story with you, because now, well, let's open the doors and let's kick over a few other paradigms here. You know, if human evolution has shown us now that we weren't the only species alive until very recently, but there were others, then maybe other scientific edifices can be torn down as well. So it's very important that we take this information we're sharing with you for what it is. It was investigated by the scientists of the day. This is mostly from the 19th century, so we're talking about the 1800s here, and people always dismiss it because back then people were a little better than primitive troglodytes, drumming on their enemies' skulls, but not so. I mean, there were scientists just as much as we are today. Darwin hails back to that era as well, and in fact Newton predates it. Okay, and Einstein was just born at the closing of that particular century. So let's not dismiss these scientists out of hand. So without further ado, though, Dave, what do we have?
Well, I was going to just first say also it was a time when someone's word was their word. And that's also very important.
Yes,
right?
You're quite right, sir. Quite right.
Colleen de Sansan, or Sansan, from France. The April 1868 proceedings of the French Academy of Sciences contain this report by F. Oh my God, my French is terrible.
Gargou.
All right. And H. Frillhol. This is a quote. We now have sufficient evidence to permit us to suppose that the contemporaneity of human beings and Miocene mammals is demonstrated. That's an end quote. Modern scientists consider the bone beds of Sansan to be Middle Miocene. One may consider the devastating effect that the presence of human beings about 15 million years ago would have on current evolutionary doctrines.
Absolutely. The next case that we're going to share with you is Pikermi in Greece. At a place called Pikermi near the plain of Marathon, which you should be familiar with. In Greece, there's a fossil-rich stratum of late Miocene, Tortonian age, explored and described by the prominent French scientist Albert Gaudry. During the meeting in 1872 at Brussels of the International Congress of Prehistoric Anthropology and Archaeology, Baron von Dücker reported that broken bones from Pekami proved the existence of humans in the Miocene. Modern authorities still place the Pekami site in the late Miocene, which would make the bones at least 5 million years old.
Wow. Pierced shark teeth from the Red Crag in England. At a meeting of the Royal Anthropological Institute of Great Britain and Ireland held in April 1872, Edward Charlesworth, a fellow of the Geological Society, showed many specimens of shark teeth, each with a hole bored through the centre, as is done by South Seas Islanders for purpose of making weapons and necklaces. The teeth were recovered from eastern England's Red Crag Formation, indicating an age of approximately 2 to 2.5 million years. Charlesworth gave convincing arguments why marine animals, such as boring mollusks, could not have made the holes. During the discussion, one scientist suggested tooth decay as the cause, but the sharks are not known to have that problem. And that's my editor's comment here, is that their teeth just cycle out. So they don't have
Correct.
their teeth long enough. As they're damaged, they just get replaced. Back to the story. Another suggested parasites admitted that no parasites are known to reside in the teeth of fishes.
Right?
Parasites!
Yeah, but I don't know what kind of parasites. But here it is, parasite anyway. Let's science some more. Calf bone from the Dardanelles in Turkey.
Oh, yeah.
In 1874, Frank Calvert found in a Miocene formation in Turkey along the Dardanelles a Dinotherium bone with carved figures of animals upon it. The elephant-like Dinotherium, that's the animal that the bone we're talking about, is said by modern authorities to have existed from the late Pliocene to the early Miocene in Europe. It is thus quite possible that Calvert's dating of the Dardanelles site as Miocene was correct. The Miocene is now said to extend from 5 to 25 million years before the present. According to the current dominant view, only exceedingly ape-like hominids are supposed to have existed during that period. Even a late Pliocene date of 2 to 3 million years for the Dardanelles site would be far too early for the kind of artifacts found there. Carving of the kind found on the Dinotherium bone are said to be the work of anatomically modern humans of the last 40,000 years. Now, David A. Trail, a professor of classics at the University of California at Davis, gives this information about Calvert. He was the most distinguished of a family of British expatriates that was prominent in the Dardanelles. He had a good knowledge of geology and paleontology. Calvert conducted several important excavations in the Dardanelles region and played a role in the discovery of Troy. Trail noted, Calvert was, as far as I've been able to determine from extensive reading of his correspondence, scrupulously truthful. Now, this is in response to hinting that Calvert might have cheated and planted those artifacts. A common accusation when something doesn't fit. In fact, something that other scientists had to endure as well in fairly recent times. Just want to quickly say something here as well. The dating we're discussing here is relative dating. Okay, this is dating that is based on the strata, the geology, if you will, of the find.
Of the date of the layer of sediment or strata, as it's known.
Correct. Now, I would very much like to get these radio dated as well, if that were possible. Sorry, sir, you're up again.
No, I think what was really interesting about that is he was being he was getting character assassinated on the basis that his find was too perfect.
Yep.
So it was character assassination based on it not fitting the paradigm. Yeah.
Correct.
And we'll find more and more of this. So San Valentino in Italy. In 1876, at a meeting of the Geological Committee of Italy, M.A. Ferretti showed a fossil animal bone bearing, and I'm quoting, traces of work of the hand of man, so evident as to exclude all doubt to the contrary. This bone of elephant or rhinoceros was found firmly in place in Astian, late Pliocene, 5.3 million to 2.5 million BCE, strata. So this one, once again, it's a relative method. In San Valentino, in Italy. Of special interest is the fact that the fossil bone has an almost perfectly round hole at the place of its greatest width. According to Ferretti, the hole in the bone was not the work of mollusks or crustaceans. Once again, a continuation of the other story. And, if you've ever seen, anyone in the South Pacific or any young surfers and their conquest, they'll have necklace-sized shark teeth. I did it when I was a surfer.
Yep, absolutely.
I had a single tooth that was found in my surfboard, and that was a victory
Really?
for me to have survived it.
That's pretty cool, actually. That's pretty cool. Carved shell from the red crag in England. In a report delivered to the British Association for the Advancement of Science, in 1881, H. Slopes, a fellow of the Geological Society, described a shell, the surface of which bore a carving of a crude but unmistakably human face. The carved shell was found in the stratified deposits of the Red Crag, which is between 2 and 2.5 million years old. One should keep in mind that in terms of conventional paleoanthropological opinion, one does not encounter such works of art until the time of fully modern Cro-Magnon man in the late Pleistocene, about 30,000 years ago.
Bone implements from below the Red Crag in England. Same spot. In the early 20th century, J. Reed Meyer, the discoverer of many anomalous old flint implements, described a series of mineralized bone implements of a primitive type from below the base of the Red or Coralline crags of Suffolk. The top of the Red Crag in East Anglia is now considered to mark the boundary of the Pliocene and Pleistocene. Pleistocene, and would thus date back to about 2 to 2.5 million years. The older Coralline Crag is late Pliocene, and would thus be at least 2.5 to 3 million years old. So as they get deeper, the beds get older. The beds below the Red and Coralline Crags, the detritus beds, contain materials ranging from the Pliocene to the Eocene in age. Objects found there could thus be anywhere from 2 to 55 million years old. Sorry about those dates. One group of Meyer's specimens of a triangular shape. In his report, Meyer stated, "These have all been formed from wide, flat, thin pieces of bone, probably portions of large ribs, which have been so fractured as to now present a definite form. This triangular form has, in every case, been produced by fractures across the natural grain of the bone." Meyer conducted experiments on bone and came to the conclusion that specimens were undoubtedly works of man.
Wow. Dewlish Elephant Trench in England. Osmond Fisher, once again a fellow of the Geological Society, discovered an interesting feature in the landscape of Dorsetshire, the Elephant Trench at Dewlish. Fisher said that in the Geological magazine in 1912, this trench was excavated in chalk and was 12 feet deep, and of such a width that a man could just pass along it. It is not on the line of any natural fracture, and the beds of flint on each side correspond. Okay, so it's dug out. The bottom of undisturbed chalk, and one end, like the sides, was vertical. At the other end, it opened diagonally onto the steep side of a valley. It has yielded substantial remains of Alphus meridionalis, but no other fossils. This trench, in my opinion, that's his opinion, Osmond Fisher, was excavated by man in the later Pliocene age as a pitfall to catch elephants. Elephas meridionalis, or southern elephant. It was in existence in Europe from 1.2 to 3.5 million years ago. Thus, while the bones found in the trench at Dulwich could conceivably be early Pleistocene in age, they might also date to the late Pliocene. Fisher made another interesting discovery. In his 1912 review he wrote, "When digging for fossils in the Eocene of Barton Cliff, I found a piece of jet-like substance about 9.5 inches square and 2.5 inches thick. It bore on at least one side what seemed to me marks of the chopping, which had formed into its accurately shaped square. Which had formed it into its accurately shaped square shape. The specimen is now in the Sedgwick Museum in Cambridge. Jet is a compact velvety black coal that takes a good polish and is often used as jewelry. The Eocene period dates back about 38 to 55 million years from the present."
Wow, that's it gets deeper, guys. Come with me on it. Come with us on this. Let's go. Neolithic tools from the California gold country. Remember, there was a gold rush there, Mekki. In 1849, gold was discovered in the gravels of ancient riverbeds on the slopes of the Sierra Nevada mountains in central California. I've been there. Drawing hordes of rowdy adventurers to places like Brandy City, Last Chance, Lost Camp, You Bet, and Poker Flat. I didn't even know what town names. You Bet, yeah, that's awesome. Let's go there. We're going to find something there for sure. The miners found hundreds of stone artifacts, and more rarely, human fossils. The most significant artifacts were reported to the scientific community by J.D. Whitney, then state geologist of California. Discoveries from the gravels just above the bedrock could be from 33.2 to 55 million years old, but discoveries from the other gravels may have been anywhere between 9 to 55. That's because of sedimentation. Whitney personally examined a collection of Tuolumne Table Mountain artifacts belonging to Dr. Perez Snell of Sonora, California. A stone muller, or some kind of utensil which had apparently been used for grinding, Dr. Snell informed Whitney. That he took it with his own hands from a carload of dirt coming out from under the Table Mountain. A human jaw, inspected by Whitney, was also present in the collection of Dr. Snell. The jaw was given to Dr. Snell by miners who claimed that the jaw came from the gravels beneath the latite cap at Table Mountain in Tuolumne County. A better documented discovery from Tuolumne Table Mountain was made by Mr. Albert G. Walton, one of the owners of the Valentine claim. Walton found a stone mortar 15 inches in diameter, in gold-bearing gravels 180 feet below the surface and also beneath the latite cap. Significantly, the find of mortar occurred in a drift, a mine passageway leading horizontally from the bottom of the main vertical shaft of the Valentine mine. This tends to rule out the possibility that the mortar might have fallen from above. So there's like contamination, the wrong date. A piece of a fossil human skull was also recovered from the Valentine mine. Another find at Tuolumne Table Mountain was reported by James Carvin in 1871 and quoted, "This is to certify that I, the undersigned, did about the year 1858, I love this old English, dig out some mining claims known as Stanislaus Company, situated in the Table Mountain, Tuolumne County, opposite O'Byrne's Ferry on the Stalinas River. A stone hatchet. The relic was found from 60 to 75 feet from the surface in gravel, under the basalt, and about 300 feet from the mouth of the tunnel. There was also some mortars found at about the same time and place. Mecky,
Now these are affidavits, guys. These are legal
affidavits
statements
coming from the people who found them. In 1870, Oliver W. Stevens submitted the following notarized affidavit. I, the undersigned, did about the year of 1853 visit the Sonora Tunnel situated at and in Table Mountain at about 1.5 mile north and west of Shaw's Flat. And at the time, there was a carload of auriferous gravel coming out of said Sonora Tunnel. And
auriferous gold-bearing gravel. It's gone, yep.
yes, that's right. And I, the undersigned, did pick out of said gravel which came from under the basalt and out of the tunnel about 200 feet in, at the depth of about 125 feet, a mastodon tooth, which is a saber-toothed tiger.
No, a mastodon is actually an elephant. Sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, sorry. At about the same time, I found with it some relic that resembled a large stone bead made perhaps of alabaster. The bead, if from the gravel, is at least 9 million years old and perhaps as much as 55 million years old. Wow. Although the tools discussed were so far were found by miners, there is one case of a stone tool being found in place by a scientist. In 1891, George F. Becker told the American Geological Society that in the spring of 1869, geologist Clarence King, director of the survey of the 40th parallel, was conducting research at Tulum Table Mountain. He found a stone pestle firmly embedded in a deposit of gold-bearing gravel lying beneath the cap of basalt. That's very important that it's beneath the cap, or latite, as it's known. Mr. King is perfectly sure this implement was in place and that it formed an original part of the gravel in which he found it, so it wasn't placed there. It is difficult to imagine a more satisfactory evidence than this of the occurrence of the implements in the auriferous pre-glacial sub-basaltic gravels. From this description and the modern geological dating of the Table Mountain strata, it is apparent that the object was over 9 million years old.
Yep.
I'm going to say, instead of 1,000, I'm going to say 9 million years old. Human artifacts.
So,
North America.
And the key thing here is, well, most of these were sworn affidavits by the miners. We must also remember that people back in those days put a lot of stock into their word. Mm-hmm. Okay, it wasn't like today. A man's or woman's word, for that matter, was really his currency. Okay, and it was very, very important. So calling someone a liar was enough to be fighting words. In some cases, even led to duels, which led to someone being shot dead. Okay, so people took their word very seriously. Secondly, there's also now evidence of a scientist, not any scientist, but no, in fact, the guy that was in charge of surveying the 40th parallel. Mm-hmm. Okay, he was in fact the director of the survey. So just want to highlight those points, guys. I mean, these are not just throwaway stories that you hear in a pub where miners get together. These are sworn affidavits. Next, we have letters in a marble block in Philadelphia, believe it or not. In 1830, letter-like shapes were discovered within a solid block of marble from a quarry 12 miles northwest of Philadelphia. The marble block was taken from a depth of 60 to 70 feet. This was reported in the American Journal of Science in 1831. The quarry workers removed layers of gneiss, mica slate, hornblende, talco slate, and primitive clay slate before coming to the layer from which the block containing the letter-like shapes was cut. While they were sawing through the block, the workmen happened to notice a rectangular indentation about 1.5 inches wide by 0.625 inches high, displaying two raised characters. Several respectable gentlemen from nearby Norristown, Pennsylvania, were called to the scene and inspected the object. It is hard to explain the formation of the characters as products of natural physical processes. This suggests the characters were made by intelligent humans from the distant past.
Awesome. That's the kind of stuff that I like to see. All right, nail in Devonian sandstone in Scotland. In 1844, Sir David Brewster reported that a nail had been discovered, firmly embedded in a block of sandstone from the Kingudi, or the Millfield quarry in Scotland. Dr. A.W. Med of the British Geological Survey wrote to us in 1985 that the sandstone is of Lower Old Red Sandstone age, Devonian, between 360 and 408 million years old. I'm saying that slow for a reason. Brewster was a famous Scottish physicist. He was a founder of the British Association of the Advancement of Science and made important discoveries in the field of optics. The particular block in which the nail was found was 9 inches thick, and in proceeding to clear the rough block for dressing, the point of the nail was found projecting out about half an inch, quite eaten with rust into the till. The rest of the nail lying along the surface of the stone to within an inch of the head, which went right down into the body of the stone. The fact that the head of the nail was buried in the sandstone block would seem to rule out the possibility the nail had been pounded into the block after it was quarried, which I think is a really good interpretation of the find.
That makes sense. Absolutely. Now we have a gold thread in Carboniferous stone in England. On June 22, 1844, this curious report appeared in the London Times. A few days ago, some workmen were employed in quarrying a rock close to the Tweed, about a quarter of a mile below Rutherford Mill. A gold thread was discovered embedded in the stone at a depth of 8 feet. Dr. A.W. Med of the British Geological Survey wrote to us in 1985, and by us, of course, it's Dr. Thompson and Cremo, in 85, that this stone is of early Carboniferous age, between 320 and 360 million years old. That's
Awesome.
probably the oldest we've come across so far.
That's amazing. Metallic vase or vase from Precambrian rock at Dorchester, Massachusetts. Dorchester. The following report, titled "A Relic of a Bygone Age," appeared in the magazine Scientific American, June 5th, 1852. The blast threw out an immense mass of rock, some of the pieces weighing several tons, and scattered fragments in all directions. Among them was picked up a metallic vessel in 2 parts, rent asunder by the explosion, so torn apart by the explosion. The curious and unknown vessel was blown out of the solid pudding stone 15 feet below the surface. According to a recent US Geological Survey map of the Boston Dorchester area, the pudding stone, now called Roxbury Conglomerate, is of Precambrian age, over 600 million years old.
Boom. Yeah. That's now the oldest.
Woohoo! I got the oldest.
Objects from Illinois well boring. In 1871, William Dubois of the Smithsonian Institution reported on several man-made objects found at deep levels in Illinois. The first object was a copper quasi-coin from Lawn Ridge in Marshall County, Illinois. In a letter to the Smithsonian Institution, J.W. Moffett stated that in August 1870 he was drilling a well using a common ground auger. When Moffett brought the auger up from a depth of 125 feet, he discovered the coin-like object on the auger. In 1881, A. Winchell also described the coin-like object. Winchell quoted a letter by W.H. Wilmot, who listed a sequence of strata slightly different from that given by Moffett. Wilmot reported that the quasi-coin had been discovered in the well boring at a depth of 114 rather than 125 feet. Using the sequence of strata given by Winchell, the Illinois State Geological Survey gave us an estimate, again this is Cremo and Thompson, estimate for the age of the deposits at the 114-foot level. They would have formed during the Yarmouthian interglacial sometime between 200,000 and 400,000 years ago. W.E. Dubois said that the shape of the quasi-coin was polygonal, approaching to circular, and that it had crudely portrayed figures in inscriptions on both sides. The inscriptions were in a language that Dubois could not recognize, and the quasi-coin's appearance differed from any known coin. Dubois concluded that the coin must have been made in a machine shop. Noting its uniform thickness, he said the coin must have passed through a rolling mill. The quasi-coin described above suggests the existence of a civilization at least 200,000 years ago in North America. Yet, beings intelligent enough to make and use coins, Homo sapiens sapiens, i.e. us, are generally not thought to have lived much earlier than 100,000 years ago. According to standard views, metal coins were first used in Asia Minor during the 8th century BC.
I know, that's just amazing, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, we're skipping past metallic tubes from chalk in France, and Meki, look where we're at.
Yeah, I know. Now, just before we go any further, quickly, this was taken from Hidden History of the Human Race by Michael Cremo and Richard L. Thompson, okay? Mm-hmm. The unabridged edition of Forbidden Archaeology is 952 pages long, and it thus presents quite a challenge to many readers. Thompson and Cremo have brought out to bring the abridged version, which is the Hidden History of the Human Race, okay? But it contains all of the information that you also have in the Forbidden Archaeology edition. So please, if you have the time and interest, do purchase the book or books and have a read for yourself. I mean, we could only, obviously, we've only shared a very few with you, and in fact, none of the human remains, okay, that they talk about in the book. These are all more the artifacts, tools and such. But they have chapters and chapters on actual remains of Homo sapiens and so forth. Now, what we have done here as well, and I'm going to quickly share this with you, and then Dave is going to share with you data rejection and the knowledge filter. Now, this is for the debunkers. We've included the primary debunking site for UParts, which is out-of-place artifacts, okay, UParts. I'm going to paste it into the chat now. It is part of the show notes. At the moment still, you can go to our website, theshinysideout.net, and have a look there. But essentially, it's www.badarchaeology.com. That's the debunking site. Now, make up your own mind about the quality of the debunking provided. For the most part, it boils down to we cannot trust 19th century journalists, and all of the evidence is anecdotal without corroboration from any other sources. Now, exploring the fringes of human knowledge is necessarily thin and anecdotal. Once it becomes accepted, more resources are devoted to it, of course. But unfortunately, there seems to be an active movement underway to suppress most of this knowledge. Fairly thin rebuttal when one thinks about other historical facts, such as the prevalent descriptions of Carthage, only available from the Romans who destroyed them. All right, so my point here is very simple. If you base your rebuttal of this evidence or your debunking on the fact that, we can't really trust the people that told us about it, I'm sorry, for me, at least, you need a bit more than that, okay? You need to give me something I can hang my hat on. There is a knowledge filter, okay? And in fact, Dave is going to share that with you. And the knowledge filter is to some extent official and to some extent also self-censorship. So people know what's good for them, right? They will, if they know what's good for them, they will not report on certain things, right? That's essentially what it boils down to. But Dave, what happened? What happened?
Oh, this is my favorite.
I know.
It's sad that it's happened. Okay, I have to say it's sad what it's done. But yet it still happens, and it's been happening today. The same case is still being debated, and I'll get to the bottom of that at the end of this. Okay, so listen, this is data rejection, inconvenient dating in Mexico. This is the high-profile case of Dr. Virginia Steen McIntyre, a geologist working for the U.S. Geological Survey, the USGS, who was dispatched to an archaeological site in Mexico to date a group of artifacts in the 1970s. This travesty also illustrates how far established scientists will go to guard orthodox tenets. McIntyre used state-of-the-art equipment and backed up her results by using 4 different methods. But her results were off the chart, given the paradigm that we mentioned earlier. The lead archaeologists expected a date of 25,000 years or less, and the geologists' finding was 10 times that, to 250,000 years or more. The figure of 25,000 years or less was critical in the Bering Strait crossing theory, and that it was a motivation behind the head archaeologist tossing Steen-Micayer's results in the circular round filer on the floor and asking for a new series of dating tests. This sort of reaction does not occur when dates match the expected chronological model. Now, what I have to say about this, her staff working for her were forced at gunpoint to sign affidavits to say they placed the objects there. Something as a result of that, the artifacts were then taken to just in a box. Who cares, right? It doesn't make any difference. They were boxed and sent to a museum. There was an earthquake. They were moved and disarrayed on the floor, having all the shelves collapse conveniently or by mishap. It doesn't really matter. This lady, her methods back in the 70s are used today by gridding out. She was the first, Meki, if you didn't, I know you know this, but our listeners don't. She was the first to grid out the dig, document everything, measure the depth, note the strata layers, diagram everything, so she would sketch all of the strata against each other. And today, still, what's odd about this site, and you can go there yourself and scratch out the soil samples and find the same stuff that's being found. If you do this independently, you'll find, this is what I mentioned earlier about the microfossils. The microfossils are an important backing for her initial find. And this has come out recently, whereas the microfossils themselves have evolved. The more ancient ones are found at the same layer that she found her stuff, and they're not mixed together with the younger ones, which is the argument put by the head of the Smithsonian, who has stated that the whole thing was fraudulent and that it was all soft, pre-dug soil and they put it all there. But in the video evidence that I saw of that dig, it's extremely hard soil. It's never been pre-dug, and it wasn't alluvially. It wasn't an alluvial layer. It wasn't set down. There was no cut of a river through it, which had then mixed sample set in that. I hate that this happened to her. But Meki, at the same time as she found this, what was going on in South Africa?
Well, exactly, right. So you've started finding the spheres, but I think we also is this when Tellinger started?
Yeah, it's pretty much. But they found who was it? Lucy.
Lucy, that's right. Oh well, which of course fits very well into the
out of Africa.
So this is the Leakeys, by the way. That became famous with that, and now of course we have the out of Africa, out of Asia, and out of all kinds of places theories contending with each other, which in short time I believe will become irrelevant, because I don't think we came out of anywhere.
Yeah,
no, it doesn't.
Like the Paracas skulls, we've got the hobbits, we've got the same fossils in the same cave at different times of year of different species of hominids. If Lloyd Pye was alive today, right now, he'd be on the phone with us talking about this. And it's such a shame that we lost such a prominent person in the field of hominid research.
Yeah. Which is actually thanks for reminding me. Sorry, Dave. This is something we have to follow up on as well, which I haven't for a while now. So I want to see where they're at with the skull.
Yeah, well, the Paracas skull DNA was close to human, wasn't human, but as we've stated before in the Paracas skull stuff, 98% human, is basically would scan up as a primate. Yeah?
Yep.
However, that wasn't a primate, and it was close. But saying 98, I posted this in a chat room this week. 98% human doesn't make it human. 46% doesn't make it human. It could be just yeast. Yeast has 48% human DNA in it, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
Believe it. I mean, it's true. So this is the thing that we've got wrong. It's a thing we have wrong with the dating and the DNA is that people will go on the wrong track. Meki, if I pulled up a bone and I said, Meki, I got it scanned and it said 98%, would you think if I said 98% like human, would you jump to the conclusion it was human? Or would you go, wow, that 2% would make it something else, right?
Well,
it's a different creature.
In fact, the chimpanzee is closer. Okay, a bonobo is coming to 99% to us.
Yeah.
I think you guys have to realize that genetically speaking, we're all brothers and sisters on this planet. No matter how different we are from each other, on this planet we're all brothers and sisters because we all share much genetic material. And the difference between a chimpanzee or bonobo and us is 1%. 1%. Okay? So if you've got something that's different by 2%, yeah, but still has quite, I guess Homo sapiens kind of features, except maybe the elongated skull. It also has different attachment points for the jaw and so forth, right? Then that's quite a different anatomical makeup. It's it'd be a different race of human at the very least, a different race of human. And the same goes for the Star Child skull, which also has these extremely different morphological and structural features, as well as the material it's made from. Right? So let's be very clear here. It's easy enough to say, oh no, it's just some heteroencephalic child, too bad, or no,
right.
These skulls are simply just the result of elongation, which was a cultural traditional thing. Not so. They're actually morphological, physiological differences in the skull that cannot be explained away by simple elongation.
Well, what's really interesting, Meki, if we're looking at the type of time scale that these things we've mentioned already tonight in the second hour, the things that don't fit. If you look at the kind of time scale the out of Africa theory would present us, there isn't enough time to have any significant amount of DNA difference from the first to the end. We're the same, right? And it doesn't matter whether you're African American or you're from actually Africa or you're from any other place. Our DNA is too close to be the same, too close to call. However, given maybe 250 million, maybe 600 million years, we could be genetically different and have just been isolated from each other. We know the Australian continent has creatures on it that weren't found anywhere else to the greater extent.
Now,
that's because of isolation.
Correct. That's exactly right. Now that's if you subscribe to the theory of evolution in all its glory. Now I'm not against evolution at all. I think that explains a whole bunch of things, right? And in fact, adaptation that goes hand in hand with evolution. In fact, the first step of evolution is adaptation. Really, you got a moth that's brown now turns gray because of industrial pollution. That's adaptation. And then once that moth turns into an elephant, that's evolution. Now, but I believe that there may be more. It's true. That's what it is. There's more probably.
Into an elephant. I love that.
Well, that's evolution in one sentence for you.
Yes,
now, what it boils down to, though, is that there may be other things at play here. And I know I'm going to sound a little crazy, but again, this is the shiny side out, and this is the tinfoil head zone right now. Maybe there was interference, right? Maybe someone, or maybe there were several starts with the human race. Yeah, maybe there were several permutations that had survived even into our fairly recent history, which we now know with Homo florensis, right? We know that different types of human beings walked the earth at the same time. We know this now, right? It's a fact. You can't escape from it. Not a Homo sapiens, but a Homo florensis, right? Now, nonetheless, part of the human family. Now, what if the human experience had started several times before that? What if, in fact, dinosaurs had developed into bipedal tool-using anthropods? Right?
Yep.
Could be. Could be. Just putting it out there, which would then make a lot of sense with the hundreds of millions of years. And it would also make sense that we were created in someone's image. Maybe it's the Anunnaki. I don't know.
Meki,
right? Maybe.
Meki, you're not too far afield with this. Remember that NASA spent hundreds of millions of dollars on a study to see what the smartest dinosaur would have turned out to be well, maybe they did already, we don't know, but what would they have looked like? if they
Yep.
became bipedal. They were close,
Correct.
according to the fossil record. So keep going, Mackie, roll.
And you know what? You know what's funny about that, Dave? The some of the abduction stories from experiencers, in fact, describe. They call them reptile-like, but I
Reptilian
mean they
types,
might well be. Yeah, they might well be saurian, rather than reptilian. So older yet than reptilian, which makes sense because think about it. Like, let's just for one second speculate. Let's say dinosaurs did evolve into an intelligent bipedal species, tool using, and maybe that 2 legs and 2 arms thing is something part of our DNA. That's part of our blueprint, and a species will develop that way, right? It just happens that way. I don't know why, but it happens.
Why not?
Yeah, and then the dinosaurs would have evolved, and it would have, even if it had taken them. See, according to the theories, it took us several million years to get where we are, right?
Yeah.
Now the dinosaurs had hundreds of millions of years to do that. And therefore, their civilization might well be star struck already. They might well be out there and might have left planet Earth well behind, and then maybe came back and saw that the mammals had now taken the reins, as it were, of Earth, and decided, to create man or us, right, in their image. So now they're bipedal and they're and they have hands and so forth and whatnot, and they decided, well, these primitive Lemurian type creatures or monkeys or whatever it might have been there, or meerkats, let's turn them into us, or into something we can use as slaves, or who knows, right? I'm just putting it out there.
Well, that's in line with the Sumerian tale, yep.
Exactly. Now, before we leave you for today, and we've only got a few minutes, I want to share with you something from the Smithsonian Institute. Now, this Smithsonian acknowledges a problem, and we closed the show last time in the same fashion. So, in 1987, paleontologist Jerry McDonald discovered a wide variety of fossilized tracks from several different species of animals and birds, located in a Permian strata. So these are fossilized footprints, okay? They're in the rock. Among the various fossilized tracks were the clear prints of a human foot. However, the Permian strata has been dated from 290 to 248 million years ago. All right? Millions of years before animals, birds, dinosaurs, and yes, man were supposed to have existed. So how can these prints be explained? In July 1992, the Smithsonian Magazine had an article on these tracks called Petrified Footprints, a puzzling parade of Permian beasts, and wonderful alliteration as well. The magazine acknowledged the mystery, acknowledging what paleontologists like to call problematic. It described what appeared to be large mammal and bird tracks that evolved long after the Permian period, yet these tracks are clearly Permian. While it is commendable that MacDonald and the Smithsonian clearly acknowledge the existence of these tracks in a strata that contradicts the current evolutionary theory, it is noteworthy that they highlight only the mammal and bird prints and do not mention the human footprints found with them. Interestingly enough, though, since these tracks have been discovered, evolutionists have not tried to argue their authenticity or debunk them, nor have they tried to argue that the footprint isn't human. Often, they claim that it's a print that just looks like a human footprint. Their silence, however, on this subject is deafening. Boom!
Boom indeed.
Boom! Right? It's problematic. No shit, Sherlock. Pardon my French. It is problematic. Yes, you could say that.
Guess that you are
because
I'm not French.
No.
Listen, Mickey, you're absolutely right. How if it's problematic, isn't that really just going against their grain? That's all.
Yes.
It goes against their funding.
Yes.
It goes against all of the things that they've learnt and the dead end that poor person in their career has driven down. It's like me back in the 80s saying, I'm going to do nothing but mainframe computers. I don't care, this PCs thing, don't worry about it. It's going to go away. There won't be anything else. It's always going to be mainframes.
Yes.
It's going to be an IBM mainframe. It's 3270. It's going to be that. And so if I did and studied nothing else in my entire life, I would have been parked. My career would have been parked. It would have been a street sweeper, because they came and went. The idea is come and went, and I should have changed as I've gone along. These same academics are the ones who open their textbooks, learn what they have to do. At the moment their course finishes, they close it and put it on the shelf behind them. Right? They put it on the shelf.
Yep.
And they can't ever change. They say, well, I've learned everything. There's nothing else to learn.
My head is full. Please stop learning me.
I'm done. I'm done with doing. So what's funny is that that's not the case. It's not the case with physics. As we know, it's not the case with paleontology. It's not the same with archaeology. All of these new things. Meki, this is one of the most exciting times in history to have ever lived, because we're finding out that everything we learnt when we were children is almost wrong. The paradigm is almost declared lockstep wrong, but there's still a lot of resistance in the ancient people with ancient ideas, mind the pun, they're cemented in their roles at the top of these trees. So, I had multiple puns then. And they're the people.
Boom, boom, boom.
fire them at you. And they're the people that we really would love to be able to present this stuff to, and shake them in the night. Maybe they can have that the Scrooge Christmas event where they'll go, have all these 3 different dreams, and come out on the right side of knowledge. But Meki, what would you hope? What was the best outcome?
The best outcome?
Mm-hmm.
In the words of Marcel Proust, a journey a journey of discovery does not begin with the first footstep, but by acquiring a new set of eyes.
Wow.
Now, what I mean by that is we need to change, the way we look at the world. All right, forget what you've learned.
Relearn everything. Take care, guys, and we'll see you for show 140 next week.
100. Awesome.
Remember, if you've watched this on YouTube, share it. I want you to share it. I want to see the big spike in shares. Go on, you can do it. Enjoy your week. We'll see you next week. Take care.